She lived in the midst of Israel to this day, for she hid the messengers from Joshua whom Joshua sent to spy out the land. Now, I want to just point out this is an interesting thing, that Rahab was a harlot who lived in the city of Jericho, right? And the first big battle that they come up when they move into the taking of the land is the Battle of Jericho. And many of you from your Sunday school days remember the story of Jericho, how they marched around Jericho, right? There wasn't a really, to call it a battle is, well, being generous, right? It was more of a parade, right? A 7-day parade. It was kind of like their autumn leaf festival, right? For 7 days, they marched around the city, right? And they sang to the thing. And then on the 7th day, they marched around it 7 times. And then they blow the trumpets and they shout, and the walls come tumbling down, right? Never lift a finger. Now, I want the little tidbit, and you know, sometimes you may not have caught this. I didn't catch this for a long time, and it's one of those things, once you see it, you can't unsee it. I'm always amazed by this part of the story because we learn in Joshua chapter 2 that the reason Rahab was able to help the spies is she lived, her house was built into the wall of the city. And she actually had a window on the outside of the wall so she could let down a string, and the spies escaped from the city of Jericho out this window outside the wall, because it literally says in chapter 2, verse 15, then she let them down by a rope through the window, for her house was on the city wall, so that she was living on the wall. Now the walls fell down, but Rahab and her family was saved. How did that happen? Well, I think it's probably what happened is the whole wall fell down except for where Rahab's house was. That was maybe the only spot left living or standing was her house where God saved her. And I just want to point this tidbit out because I want you to understand that God can do more than 2 things at one time. Right? This is a miracle inside a miracle. And sometimes even when we think about God, we struggle with God being, well, he can't do that and this. You know, God can't do that and that and that at the same time. Oh, yes, he can. He can do more. He can, maybe my dad would say it this way, he can walk and chew bubble gum at the same time. He's a multitasker. And one of the great things that I imagine about God is how in God's plan and the answer to our prayers, that God is able to do multiple things, answer multiple prayers, accomplish multiple goals in his will, all at the exact same time. It's just an amazing, and this is just one little tidbit picture of how he can give the city of Jericho to the Israelites and save the prostitute Rahab and her family, as he promised he would, all at the same time. Just kind of an amazing little picture that I kind of wanted to throw out there so you see just how good he is. But as I said, I want to concentrate today in this week and next week on the speeches of Joshua. So he wraps up the book of Joshua with a couple of speeches. He calls all the people together and he talks to them. And that's kind of what I want to look at today. So Joshua chapter 23. And what we're going to do is we're going to read a verse, and I'll just make a comment, and we'll read some verses, and I'll make a comment. We're going to walk through the chapter, really walk through it verse by verse. Joshua 23, verse 1. Now it happened after many days, after Yahweh had given to Israel from all their enemies, had given rest, to Israel from all their enemies on every side, and Joshua was old and advanced in years. All right, so this is just a place marker. But what I want you to see is that the taking of the land, right? From the time they entered into the land till the time Joshua makes his speeches, it says it was many days. This didn't happen overnight. It took time for them to move into the land, to take the land, and divide the land. And so God eventually finishes what he started. And here, drawing to the end of Joshua's life, after many days, right, we learn a couple of things. Number one, God is patient, right? And God fulfills his promises. And so, again, God can do 2 things at one time. He can be patient and fulfill his promises. And and even if you look at this bigger picture, that this was a promise made to Abraham in Genesis chapter 12, decades, centuries before its fulfillment, we see the patience of God. And sometimes we just got to remind ourselves that God plays the long game, right? He's patient. He takes his time. He's got a plan. Now, when it comes to the promises of God, we want them now, today. Actually, it was like somebody called me yesterday, like, when did you want this done? I wanted it done last week, right? That tends to be how we approach God. Like, you promised this, and we haven't got it yet. It's interesting in Hebrews chapter 11, it talks about these faithful people who they followed God and never received what they had wanted. And yet they continue to follow God because they had their mind fixed on a better country. And they continue to follow him because they were seeking something more. And they were being willing to be patient and follow God even when the promises didn't come immediately. And so we see that it's taken a long time. Joshua, it's taken many, many years, many days. Joshua's old and he's advanced in years. And he calls the people together to talk to them. But we see his promises has been fulfilled. That promise, that simple promise to Abraham, that I will give you the land of the Canaanites. Now at the end of Joshua's life, it is finished. It is done. We are here in the land of Canaan, ready to move on. Verse 2. Now Joshua called for all of Israel, for the elders, for their heads, for their judges, for their officers, and said to them, I am old and advanced in years. And you have seen that Yahweh your God has done to all the nations because of you. For Yahweh your God is he who has been fighting for you. For Yahweh your God is he who has been fighting for you. And one of the things that Joshua makes clear to the people, and when we're thinking about the book of Joshua itself, I want you to understand that Joshua, the book that we're studying or talking about today, is a record of God's success. This isn't about Joshua. And Joshua, at the end of his life, he calls everybody together and says, I just want y'all to be clear. It's been God who's been fighting for you. It's been God who's doing all this. That all that has happened in our history since I took over is a record of the success of God. It's not really about Joshua. It's about God's success. And he points that out to them. This God who's been doing this. So it's God who moved the Israelites into the land. It's God who helped the Israelites take the land. And it's God who instructed the Israelites how to divide the land. This is God's story and not even Joshua's story, as great a man as he was. Verse 4. See, I allotted to you these nations, which remain an inheritance for your tribes, with all the nations which I have cut off, from the Jordan even to the great sea, toward the setting of the sun. And Yahweh your God will thrust them out from before you and dispose them before you, and you will possess their land, just as Yahweh your God has promised. Now, the interesting thing is, as Joshua is here in the land, he's realized he's getting ready to die. You know, they've taken the land, they're in the land, they've divided the land, but there's still other tribes, there's other nations still in the land. There's still battles yet to come. There's still people to have to deal with. There's still challenges that face the people. And he promises them that Yahweh is going to remain faithful. He's going to continue to drive these people out if they want him to. And what I want us to realize is that the promised land itself was not paradise, right? The promised land wasn't heaven. There were still struggles. There were still troubles. There were still enemies and adversaries in the promised land that they were going to have to deal with. I think it kind of reminds me of how it is for us. That even now in our saved state, you know, for those of us who are followers who have been saved, right, there's a certain amount of victory we have already. But this world, it's not paradise. We're not living in heaven yet, right? And we still have struggles, and we still have adversaries, and we still have things to overcome. And I think about the people of the Israelites, how, you know, they were freed from slavery, they were freed from the power of Pharaoh, right? But they're still in the promised land, still having struggles and things to deal with. And it reminds me of us, that through the power of God, through what Jesus did on the cross, you and I, we're free from the power of sin. Sin is not our master anymore. That we can have victory over sin. That the power of sin, or the power that sin had over us, that we can say no to it. That God's freed us from the power of sin. God's also freed us from the penalty of sin, right? We have been forgiven. By grace, we have been saved. That this penalty that we are rightly due because of our sin, God took that on himself, and we're free from that penalty. We don't have to worry about paying that debt, that Jesus paid it for us on the cross. But we still live in the presence of sin, right? Just like the Israelites lived in the presence of their enemies, lived in the presence of these other nations who would do them harm, who would lead them astray if they would let them. We still live, y'all may not know it, but in the world there's sin. Y'all don't look shocked. There's still the presence of sin, and we live in that very presence each and every day. There's things going on in our world that shouldn't be going on, and we live in the presence of that. We haven't escaped that yet. And we still have the predisposition to sin. We have this proclivity, this part of us who, that's kind of what we do, right? We still struggle with giving in to our old nature at times. And we have this predisposition, though we're freed from its power and we're freed from its penalty, we often give in to it still, right? And so in our lives, we're still struggling, much like the Israelites would have to struggle in the promised land, because this world is not paradise. And so here's what Joshua says to them starting in verse 6. Be very strong then. Why? Because you live in this presence of sin. You live with these other nations, right? Be very strong then to keep and do all that is written in the book of the law of Moses, so that you may not turn aside from it to the right hand or to the left, so that you will not go along with the nations, these which remain among you, and you will not mention the name of their gods, and you will not make anyone swear by them, and you will not serve them, and you will not bow down to them. But you're to cling to Yahweh your God, as you have done to this day. For Yahweh has disposed great and mighty nations from before you, and for you, and as for you, no man has stood before you this day. One of your men will pursue 1,000 of theirs. Yahweh your God is he who fights for you, just as he promised you. So keep your souls very carefully to love Yahweh your God. He's like, you're still living in the presence of these other people, and they're going to try to get you to worship other gods. Be strong and stay on God's side. That's what he's saying. Like, you guys put yourself on God's side. Stay there. Don't leave the side of God. And so this is that choice that we saw there in the beginning. Like, whose side are you on? Well, I'm on God's side. Well, stay there, because you are still living in this with these other people and these other temptations around you. Verse 12. Then he gives them a warning about leaving God's side. For if you ever turn back and cling to the rest of these nations, these which remain among you, and intermarry with them, so that you go along with them, and they with you, know with certainty that Yahweh your God will not continue to dispose these nations from before you, but they will be a snare and a trap to you, and a whip on your side, and thorns in your eyes, until you perish from this good land which Yahweh your God has given you. And what he's teaching the people is you're going to still live with these other people. And he's challenged them to understand holiness is a constant pursuit. Right? Remember way back, God, even when we talked about Deuteronomy, God's called his people to be holy, to go into the land and be holy, to be different, to be separate, to be unlike the other people. And now that they have arrived and they've conquered the land and they've divided the land, Joshua is saying, you haven't arrived. Holiness is something we're going to continue to have to pursue. You're going to have to keep pursuing. You're going to have to keep separating. You're going to have to keep making yourself different. You're going to have to keep being unique. You're going to have to keep dedicating yourself to the service of God over and over and over. And just because we've settled doesn't mean it's over. And so holiness is a pursuit that we must choose. And so really it's a warning about compromising with the world. Joshua is saying, look, you live among these other people. Don't compromise with them. Don't capitulate with them. Remain holy, remain dedicated to the Lord, remain on God's side and not give in to them. Because what it says, if you go along with them, is what it says. Now, I have often made some statement similar to this, that we, First Baptist Church, that we are one of the last Bible-believing, Bible-teaching, striving our very best to hold to the teachings of the Scriptures in the downtown area. And that's not the kindest statement to make, and I'll just admit that, but I do believe it. And why do I say that? Because there's other churches across our nation, in our area, who have capitulated, who have compromised with the secular teaching of this world, right? They have become friends with the world. The word capitulate, in case you're not used to using that, and I'm not in my daily vocabulary, so I looked it up so to understand what it means, to make sure it meant what I thought it meant or what I wanted it to mean. And it means to cease to resist an opponent or an unwelcome demand, to surrender or give up. And I see lots of churches in our culture who have ceased to fight the good fight. They've decided to give in to the Bible. They've decided to ignore the Bible. They've decided to set aside the Bible. They have decided to compromise the Bible and say that the Bible doesn't say things that it does say, or to say it doesn't say anything at all. I'm afraid this has reached pandemic levels within the church world. And we have compromised, many churches have compromised with the world. And it goes something like this. Look, we won't say anything bad about you if you don't say anything bad about us. This is the compromise. And in some cases, I think it's got worse. It's what the church is telling people, telling the world, and telling what people want to believe. Look, we'll say good things about you if you, in turn, say good things about us. And we kind of wash each other's back in that kind of sense, just trying to get along with the rest of the world. And what we've done is we've gone along with the pagan beliefs of a foreign world, the very thing that Joshua is warning the people not to do. Don't give in to the teachings of the other religions, of the pagan religions, because you worship the one true God, and make yourself holy, separate unto him. And I don't want to say we're holy, but I do want to say we're striving for it, because it's a constant pursuit. It's a constant pursuit. And I have fully embraced for a long time that I will never arrive. Do we see the Lord's blessings? Are we having victories in the land? Are things at times going really good for us? Yes, I believe they are, and I think God needs to get praise for that. But we must be careful never to think we got there, to never stop pursuing holiness and separation and dedication, to not go along with the world, because living in the world is like living in upstate South Carolina where kudzu grows. If you don't fight it, it will take over. And that's just the truth. And so that's what Joshua is warning the people. Yeah, we've had success. We've taken the land. We've divided the land. But don't stop chasing the holiness of God. Verse 14. Now behold, today I'm going the way of all the earth, and you know in your hearts and in your souls, and not one word that all of God's words which Yahweh has spoke to us concerning has failed you. And all has come to pass. Not one word of them has failed. So he's talking to him. He's like, now remember the promises of God, and you know God has kept all his promises. And he's setting them up for a and but kind of thing, just so you know. Verse 15. And it will be that just as all the good words which Yahweh your God spoke to you have come upon you, so Yahweh will bring upon you all the calamitous words, until he's destroyed you from off this good land which Yahweh your God has given you, when you trespass against the covenant of Yahweh your God, which he commanded you, and you go and serve other gods and bow down to them, the anger of Yahweh will burn against you, and you will perish quickly from the ground and land, from the good land which the Lord has given you. He's like, you know that everything God promised, he has fulfilled. He's done every good thing he said he would do. But you need to be warned. He will do the bad things he said he will do too if you leave God's side. If you go to the other side. You don't want to be God's opponent. And what I appreciate about this is God is really honest about the real danger we face. God shoots straight with us. He doesn't mince words. He doesn't make excuses for us. He just tells it like it is. Now, y'all don't understand this, I don't think. But moving to Pennsylvania, for me, a good old Southern boy, there were some challenges. And one of those is y'all don't act like we do. And what I mean by that is that people in Pennsylvania have a directness that I didn't grow up, bless your heart. And it's a cultural thing. We have this thing in the South called a backhanded compliment, right? Like where somebody says something nice to you, but you realize after they said it, that wasn't really that nice. That was a really nice way of saying something really mean to me. Like the time, as I've told you before, the lady who looked at me and came up to me after a sermon and said, "Don't worry, Jason. God qualifies the called. He doesn't call the qualified." That was really nice of her to say. Wasn't it? God qualifies. He doesn't call the Oh, you're letting me know what you thought of the sermon today. Now I get it. When I got home, I figured it out what she was saying to me, right? That's a backhanded compliment. We say things very nicely. We don't want to offend anybody. We don't want to. But in Pennsylvania, I have learned there's a directness. Like, people just say it like it is. And I'm trying to grow thicker skin so that I can deal with that a little bit. Can I get a witness? That's a real thing, right? Okay, all right, sounds good. I'm not making this up. Well, God's like that. And I've learned to appreciate the directness. I've learned to appreciate that people, especially those who I care about, tell me what they think. They don't beat around the bush. They don't sugarcoat it. They don't give me a backhanded compliment. They just let me know where I stand, and I'm learning to just kind of respond to that in that kind of way. And that's really what God's doing. He's like, look, I've done good for you, and if you get on the wrong side, here's what's coming. So I find God honest, and I think we should appreciate that because he's been honest from the get-go. Genesis chapter 2, verse 15 says this, "Then Yahweh took man and set him in the garden of Eden to cultivate and keep it. And Yahweh commanded the man, saying, From any of the tree of the garden you shall surely eat. But from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat. For in the day that you eat it, from it you will surely die." Just, here it is. Here's the real issue, right? If you don't do what I say, you're going to die. And I don't want you to die. So, do what I say. It's just straightforward. It's interesting in Luke's gospel, Luke falls upon this whole idea, and he says, look, I'll tell you who you need to fear. You need to fear him whom after you've died has the ability to cast you into hell, to put you into the second death, total separation from God. And God's just really straight with the people, right? He's really honest with us. He's really to the point. And I think we need to appreciate the honesty of God as he tells us about the real danger we face. And that danger really is entering eternity on the wrong side. Because then you're an enemy of God instead of being on his side. And so at the end of this, what I realized, just reading from this chapter, that Joshua, the book of Joshua, at least this last chapter, is really a discipleship message. Now, here's how I did this sermon, just so you know, that I didn't invent this. I didn't do this so it would work out the way it did. I started with the scriptures. I started reading section by section, and I started trying to just figure out what little blurb kind of captured the thought of these different verses. And I wrote one down, and then I read the next section, and I wrote the next one down, and I read the next section, and I wrote the next one down. That's how this was built. But if you're one of those people who keeps notes, right, and you have written nothing but the blurbs, the little blurbs that I wrote down, here's what you have, or something to this effect. God is patient, but fulfills his promises. God is at work in the world, and the Bible is a record of God's activity. The world is not paradise. So we got to stay on God's side and continue to pursue holiness and watch out for the snares and the traps of this world, because that's the real danger we face. That's discipleship, you guys. God is not patient. God is patient. He's fulfilling his promises. He's at work in the world. This world is not paradise, so we've got to make sure we stay on God's side and continue to pursue holiness and be careful of the snares of this world. This is a New Testament message. In some ways, this last chapter encapsulates the entire New Testament, or a lot of the teaching of the New Testament about being a disciple. Here's a list of verses. You can write them down. I'm going to just highlight them briefly for you. I wasn't sure I would have time to go through them, and I'm going to stretch it just a little bit because I think it's important. God is patient, but fulfills his promises. 2 Peter 3:19, the Lord is not slow to fulfill his promise, as some count slowness, but he is patient towards you, not wishing that any should perish, but that all should reach repentance. But the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night, like a thief, and then the heavens will pass away with a roar. The heavenly bodies will be burned up, dissolved, and the earth and the works that are done on it will be exposed. The New Testament tells us God is patient, but he will fulfill his promises to return one day. But he wants us to have a chance to get on his side. God is at work in the world. Philippians 2:12 and 14. Therefore, my beloved, as you always have obeyed, now, not only in my presence, but much more in my absence, work out your salvation with fear and trembling. For it is God who works in you, both to will and to work for his good pleasure. That our salvation, and as we're growing, God is working in us to help us work out our salvation. The world is not paradise. Hebrews 11, I talked about this earlier. It says, these people died in faith, not receiving the things promised, but having seen them and greeted them from afar, and having acknowledged that they were strangers and exiles on the earth. For people who speak thus make it clear that they're seeking a homeland. If they had been thinking of the land from which they had gone, they would have had the opportunity to return. But as it is, they desire a better country, that is, a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared for them a city. So this world is not paradise, and we are strangers on this world, exiles looking to our homeland. And so we have to stay on God's side. James 4:7 says, submit yourselves therefore to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Romans 8:31 assures us, if you're on God's side, what shall we say then to these things? If God is for us, if we're on his side, who can be against us? Stick with God's side. That's where our security is. And we must continue to pursue holiness. Hebrews 12:1 and 2. Therefore, since we have this great cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely to us. Let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the founder and the perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. This is a marathon we're in, and we continue to run the race with our eyes fixed on Jesus, because we haven't got to the throne just yet. Watch out for the snares and the traps of this world. Luke 12:5. But I warn you whom to fear. Fear him who, after he is killed, has the authority to cast into hell. Yes, I say fear him. 1 John 2:15 and 17. Do not love the world or anything that is in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the desires of the flesh, the desires of the eyes, the pride of life, is not from the Father, but from the world. The world is passing away along with its desires, but whoever does the will of God remains forever. Whoever is on God's side remains forever. And finally, James 4 and 5. This is what Joshua is warning against. You adulterous people, do you not know that friendship with the world is enmity with God? Do you not know being on the world's side is being not on God's side, being opposed to God? Therefore, whoever wishes to be a friend of the world makes himself an enemy of God. Or do you not suppose it is for no purpose that the Scriptures say, he yearns jealously over the Spirit that he's made dwell in us? And so the message that Joshua gives to the people after they've settled is the same message we need to hear, even after we've settled our salvation, even after we've accepted Christ. That God is patient, but he will fulfill his promise. God is at work in the world. This world is not paradise. So we must stay on God's side. We must continue to pursue holiness each and every day. And we must watch out for the snares and the traps of this world that are the danger in which we live each and every day.
As we close this morning, this race that we've been given is a race that we've been called to abide in God, to walk with him. So stand with us as we close this morning and as we sing.
Where the Spirit leads, as I'm following, I depend on you. I depend on you for the victories still in front of me. I depend on you. I depend on you. You're the way, the truth, and the life. You're the well that never runs dry. I'm the branch and you are the vine. Draw me close and teach me to abide. Be my strength, my song in the night. Be my all, my treasure, my prize. I am yours forever, you're mine. Draw me close and teach me to abide. When I pass through death, as I enter rest, I depend on you. depend on you for eternal life, to be raised with Christ. I depend on you. Oh, I depend on you. You're the way, the truth, and the life. You're the well that never runs dry. I'm the branch and you are the vine. Draw me close and teach me to abide. Be my strength, my song in the night. Be my all, my treasure, my prize. I am yours forever, you're mine. Draw me close and teach me to abide. And teach me to abide. The splendor of the King, clothed in majesty, let all the earth rejoice, let all the earth rejoice. He wraps himself in light, and darkness tries to hide, and trembles at his voice, and trembles at his voice. How great is our God! Sing with me, how great is our God! And all will see how great is our God. And age to age he stands, and time is in his hands, beginning and the end, beginning and the end. The Godhead three in one, and Father, Spirit, Son, the Lion and the Lamb, the Lion and the Lamb. How great is our God! Sing with me, how great is our God! And all will see how great is our God. You're the name above all names, worthy of all praise. My heart will sing, how great is our God. You're the name above all names, worthy of all praise. My heart will sing, how great is our God. How great is our God. Sing with me,
Dear Heavenly Father, God, you are a great God. You are an almighty God. You are a perfect God. You are a righteous God. Lord, as we live our life in this world, Lord, help us to abide in you, to walk with you, to trust in you. So always check ourselves every day and make sure that we're not trying to get you on our side, but we're trying to walk with you. We're trying to be on your side because you are holiness. And our striving each day should be for holiness, to be set apart from this world, to stand out in this world, to be salt, to be light in this world, so that people will see Jesus in us. So Lord, help us to walk with you and to abide with you, to trust in you, so that the world will see you in us. And more people will come to the knowledge that Jesus Christ is Lord and Savior. And all God's people said, amen.